Hi, I'm Noelle Newton, and you are watching a Fox 7 Web Extra on our YouTube channel. I'm joined by Kaiser. He's a staff attorney for the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault. And today we're talking about a loophole in a federal law filed in 2005 meant to encourage sex assault victims to come forward, get a forensic exam after their attack, preserving that precious evidence without having to immediately report to police. Well, now we are learning, since Texas went into compliance in 2009, that sex assault victims, while their SANE exam, that forensic exam is covered, their medical expenses aren't reimbursed, which is a huge hit for these victims. Chris, tell me what you're hearing from them.
That's exactly right. Well, and so we have known for a long time that very few sexual assault survivors come forward and report to police right away. And that was the whole rationale behind this law in 2009, was to give people a chance to get the evidence collected and preserved, even if they weren't ready to talk to police right away. The problem is that we didn't think about how much those medical services cost. So we have a lot of survivors who are getting bills in the mail anywhere from a couple $100s up to over $1,000 sometimes.
And I'm hearing thousands from other agencies as well.
Sure.
And so you were telling me about they take a huge financial hit after this happens just because, you know, life is altered forever. You're talking about job loss.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, think about any time that if you don't have a lot of money to begin with, and then you have collectors calling you for medical bills that you've got all this other trauma that you're trying to work through in your life at the same time. It can be really overwhelming.
Break down some of those medical bills because, you know, we're talking about injuries, long-term care. What are some of those itemized things?
Sure. Well, I want to say first that it's hugely important for survivors to go to the hospital as soon as possible after a sexual assault. And the reason for that is not only to collect and preserve evidence against the perpetrator, but also to get examined for any kind of injuries or infections that survivors may not even realize are there. So those medical services can include things like medication, prophylaxis for STIs, x-rays, ultrasound, stitches, as well as just administrative fees for using the ER.
And so what are you doing to change this?
Well, I'm happy to say now that on the second day of filing in the Texas legislature, we've got a bill filed in the Senate and soon to be in the House that would allow an avenue for survivors who haven't reported yet to still get reimbursed from the Attorney General's office for those medical expenses.
That's fantastic. And who do you have on board right now?
The bill was filed by Senator Rodriguez from El Paso, and it will be filed in the House very soon by Representative Tony Dale from Round Rock.
And so if we have any you know, people watching out here, what would you recommend they do? Maybe they've been the victim of sex assault. Maybe they, you know, it may happen in the future. Maybe they'll know someone. What do you do? What do you tell people to do?
Sure. Well, as I said, you want to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Some of this evidence doesn't stick around forever. It'll disappear over time. Generally, the window we talk about is 4 days, 96 hours. But if you've got a friend, the most important thing you can tell them is that you don't have to dive in headlong into the criminal justice process. You can go to the hospital, get taken care of, and then sort that all out later.
Yeah, how long is that evidence preserved? How long will DPS store it?
After you've got it preserved and you haven't contacted the police, the state will preserve that evidence for up to 2 years at their state lab up in Arlington.
Wonderful. And explain why it's so hard for some victims to come forward.
Yeah, well, we know that most sexual assaults aren't committed by strangers. Typically, it's somebody that the victim knows. They might have mutual friends, acquaintances, family members even, and it gets to be more complicated than just a violent attack. You've got a lot of people involved in a lot of cases, and people just aren't ready to try to send somebody to prison that might have been a loved one at a point in the past.
So give me a good contact number, or where should people turn?
If you're looking for help, not just about forensic exams, but just if you want to talk to somebody about it, you can contact the national hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE. Or if you want to find a local rape crisis center here in Texas, you can go to the crisis center locator at hopelaws.org.
Thank you so much for your time, Chris. And you can catch our story tonight, Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and you can always find it online. Thanks for watching.